Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopijana Balava Giribaradhare Gopijana Balava Giribaradhare Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopijana Balava Giribaradhare Gopijana Balava Giribaradhare Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Nrsimha Dev Jai Nrsimha Dev Nrsimha Dev Jai Nrsimha Dev Jai Nrsimha Dev Jai Nrsimha Dev Nrsimha Dev Jai Nrsimha Dev Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Vishnavad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Chaturdasi Samad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Ki, Sri Giri Govardhan Ki, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki, Sri Nrsimha Dev Bhagavan Ki, Sri Nrsimha Dev Bhagavan Ki, Sri Nrsimha Dev Bhagavan Ki, Sri Prahlad Maharaj Ki, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You have that thing. Can we use it? This is from Ahovalam, place of Lord Nrsimha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyatyadeshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyas cha kripa sindubhya eva cha, Paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Nrsimha Dev Bhagavan ki jai, Sri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Yes, so devotees, today's the appearance day of Lord Nrsimha Day. Very, very sacred and very important day in our year, in our calendar. And a day for us to meditate and really try to take into our hearts Lord Nrsimha Dev and appreciate the mercy of Lord Nrsimha Dev and what our relationships are with Lord Nrsimha Dev. The thing is, Lord Nrsimha Dev is Krishna. He's not another person. He's Lord Krishna. But he's a particular, very special feature of Lord Krishna. That Lord Krishna, when he gets into different moods, he wants to perform different pastimes, associate with different devotees in different ways, then Lord Krishna assumes different forms. It's Lord Ramachandra when he wants to perform pastimes of a, you could say, royal nature. And Lord Kurma, Lord Matsya, Lord Varaha, Lord Vamana. These are all different forms of Krishna when he's in different moods, when there are different circumstances there, and different devotees who have different appreciations of him in different ways. So he manifests these different forms. And particularly Lord Nrsimhadev, Lord Krishna, when he's in the mood of protecting his devotees, then Lord Krishna manifests this form as Lord Nrsimhadev, half man, half lion, extremely powerful and just very dramatic form, even somewhat shocking form, even sometimes to some devotees, like when Lord Nrsimhadev had just killed Hiranyakashipu, then the demigods who were devotees, even Lord Brahma himself, he would not approach Lord Nrsimhadev because he felt it would be or might be too dangerous. So, but Prahlad Maharaj, who is the special devotee of Lord Nrsimhadev, he approached Lord Nrsimhadev. And he was very happy to approach Lord Nrsimhadev, and Lord Nrsimhadev was very happy to accept him and interact with him and accept a nice garland from Prahlad Maharaj. At that particular point in the development of the pastime, Lord Nrsimhadev had a garland. He had quite a big garland already, but it wasn't your sort of normal garland that we get, like this garland. It was a garland of Hiranyakashipu's intestines. Hare Krishna. So, but it's very glorious. It's very glorious, although it's very, very dramatic. I don't know who got the Mahaprasad garland, if anyone, but anyway, it was a garland worn by the Lord. So today is the day, the anniversary of Lord Nrsimhadev's appearance within this world to protect Prahlad Maharaj, his devotee. So it's Lord Nrsimhadev's appearance day, and it is the disappearance day of Hiranyakashipu. So, it's also auspicious. Yes, it was good that he disappeared under those circumstances. So this is Lord Nrsimhadev. And Lord Nrsimhadev appeared, you could say, in ISKCON, or worship of Lord Nrsimhadev started in ISKCON, and the devotees first became aware of Lord Nrsimhadev when Srila Prabhupada in New York, I assume it was 1967, Srila Prabhupada had some type of heart attack and or stroke, but something like that, some sort of, they call it in technical terms, an insult. means the system there connected with the heart has become dysfunctional. So Srila Prabhupada was hospitalized, and the devotees, of course the devotees, they're very, very new devotees by our standards. But they had great appreciation for Srila Prabhupada, and the party was already playing in their lives. So they were very concerned. What is going to happen to Srila Prabhupada? Because the situation really seemed very bad, actually. So they approached Srila Prabhupada and asked him, are there any special things we can do to help you, to save you or to help you recover? And Srila Prabhupada instructed them, yes, you can pray to Lord Nrsimha. Up to that time, even though some of them at least had been involved and practicing for a year or something like that, perhaps a little more even, not a lot more, but maybe a bit more than a year in some cases, but they didn't know of Lord Nrsimha at all. So then Srila Prabhupada explained to them a little bit about Lord Nrsimha, and he taught them the mantras which we chant at the end of the major artis. We're all very familiar with those mantras. Namaste Narasimhaya, Pralada Lada Dayani, Hiranyakashipu Bhakshaha, Silatam Kana Kalaye, Ito Nrsimha, Parato Nrsimha, Yato Yami Tato Nrsimha, Bahir Nrsimha, Hridaye Nrsimha, Nrsinghamadim, Sharanam Prapadye, and then Tavakara Kamalavare, that particular verse from Jayadev Goswami. So Srila Prabhupada taught the devotees those verses, and that if they would chant these verses now, then it would help. So they did, of course, and that practice afterwards spread, and it's just a standard part of ISKCON nowadays. There are different Nrsimha mantras of different types, and later on today, actually, we will chant some of those, kavachas even, and sure, some of them are really dramatic in the extreme. But these prayers which we chant, which Prabhupada taught at that time, and which we now chant as a very regular function at the end of the major artis. We already did this morning after the Mangal Arati. Yes, so those, at least for us, let us just leave it at that, at least for us, these are the main Nrsimhadev mantras which we chant to invoke the merciful protection of Lord Nrsimhadev, particularly at times of danger. Of course, this material world, padam yad vipadam natesham, it's just always a place of danger, and who knows when some fatal danger will just descend upon any of us, even within a second or 2 seconds like that. Yes, so, but Prabhupada gave the devotees these mantras. He could have given some kavacha, which is more, well, dramatic. He could have, there are different mantras he could have given, but he specifically chose these mantras. So therefore they're standard for us, they're very special for us, for our protection. So the story of Lord Nrsimhadev, his appearance and the events leading up to his appearance, and then when he actually appeared and confronted Hiranyakashipu, and the great battle that took place between them, and then how at the end of that Lord Nrsimhadev killed Hiranyakashipu. It's quite a story. If we look in the 7th canto, well, it's several chapters. It's several chapters. And even having said that, it actually begins in the 3rd canto. And at least the very beginning is there in the 3rd canto. So it is a very substantial narration, very substantial pastime. So today what we'll do, we'll start a bit at the beginning and then go on and lead up to just about the time that Lord Nrsimhadev appears. And then when Lord Nrsimhadev is just about to appear, we'll leave you in suspense. Anyway, but you know what is going to happen. And the rest, the actual appearance and the killing of Hiranyakashipu, will leave till this evening. But the whole story, from the outset, from the 3rd canto, the whole story is really very interesting, and there are so many points of great significance. It really begins that one day, Kashyapa Muni Kashyapa Muni was at home, actually. Kashyapa Muni was at home, and he had been doing some type of puja, shall we say, maybe for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, Kashyapa Muni was a bit more on the impersonal side himself. But anyway, he had been doing some form of puja, and now following the puja, he was sitting in meditation. He was sitting in meditation in the sort of classical meditation position with his eyes closed, and he was in some type of trance. He was absorbed internally in some sort of trance, having done that puja. Some sort of trance more focused on Brahman, the impersonal Brahmajyoti. That was his inclination, actually. So there he was, Kashyapa Muni, very important sage, one of the sons of Lord Brahma, right at the very beginning of the universe, or at least this day of Brahma. and as the process for recreating the universe, not the whole universe, but part of the universe that was all beginning at the beginning of that particular day, or even this particular day of Lord Brahma. So there was Kasyapa Muni, and he had a number of wives. If I remember correctly, someone can correct me, I think 12. They were, however many there were, they were sisters. They were sisters. And they were all daughters of Swayambhuva Manu. And they were sisters of Devahuti, actually, who had become the wife of Lord Shiva. But that's another story. So they're daughters of Daksha. They're daughters of Daksha and granddaughters of Swayambhuva. So they all, except this particular one, Diti, they had all already given birth to children, or even to sons. They had all, except for Diti. She had not had a child yet, and she was feeling that sort of lack in her life, and even feeling somewhat embarrassed that amongst all her sisters, who are her co-wives, they all have children, sons, but she doesn't. So what happened was, and yeah, it's just a very important thing, very significant in the unfolding of this whole pastime, is that it was the evening. It was twilight, that sort of time. It wasn't night, but it wasn't just the late afternoon. There was the sort of the shift, the change through twilight into the night was happening. So she, somehow or other, at that particular point, Diti was really feeling that I want to have a child, to have a son. I have a right. I'm a very faithful wife of my husband, Kashyapa, and he is a very pious and noble Brahmin sage, and I have a right that he will give me a child, a son. So at that time, just as the evening is sort of easing in, she became more or less overwhelmed by this desire. And so she approached Kasyapa, who is in some form of samadhi. And she didn't grab him physically yet. She will do shortly. But what she did, she addressed him very loudly. She addressed him very loudly that this is my situation, and I'm feeling left out, I'm feeling embarrassed in the company of my co-wives who are my sisters, and I can't take it. I cannot take it any longer. So she insisted, you must now impregnate me. We must conceive a child now. So she presented this to Kasyapa loudly, so he came out of his trance, and he was forced to deal with the situation. Now, interesting point, and Prabhupada comments on this point. in his purports in that particular part of the third canto, fourth canto, third canto. Okay. Yeah, very important point Srila Prabhupada makes is that Kashyapa, of course, he knew that this is the wrong time. Not just the wrong time, but it is more or less guaranteed, if we conceive a child now, it is more or less guaranteed the child will be demoniac, actually, will have a bad nature and cause disturbance and cause us pain as his parents. But Prabhupada describes there that because he was not a devotee, because he was more on the impersonal side, he wasn't like, well, Prabhupada contrasts him with Haridas Thakur, who was approached by the prostitute, but who was able to pacify her and just, well, in fact, preach to her ultimately and make her into a devotee. Kasyapa, though not being a devotee, being more somewhat impersonal, he didn't have that Shakti. And so he actually spoke to her that, it's not a good idea. Lord Shiva and his ghostly associates, they're flying through the sky, and among other things, they are looking for impious couples who are right now engaging in sex life. And some of those ghosts and other, demoniac beings, by the arrangement of Lord Shiva, they will be placed in the wombs of those women who are engaging in sex life at this time, at twilight. So he tried to convince her that at least let's wait. He accepted, of course I must give you a child, of course I must. You're quite right. But let's just wait till tomorrow or some auspicious time. You don't need to worry. But Diti, she wouldn't accept it. And so she physically grabbed hold of him. And then the process of conception took place. And at the end of it, Kasyapa Muni took a bath, and then he spoke to Diti. Diti had come to her senses more and understood that I forced my husband into doing something very wrong, and there are going to be bad consequences. And actually she prayed, she said, Lord Shiva is my brother-in-law. He is the husband of my sister, Devahuti. So, Lord Shiva, maybe, you could just sort of not mind too much. But Kashyapa said, that's amazing, his insight. He immediately understood that you are going to give birth not just to one demoniac person, but you're going to give birth to two, and they are going to cause chaos in the universe. and great disturbance. They will harass Brahmins, devotees, women, and it'll just be like catastrophic within the universe. And we, but particularly you're responsible. And Diti became anxious. Oh, they're going to harass Brahmins. Will Brahmins kill them? And Kasyapa said, no. The Supreme Personality of Godhead will kill them. And then she felt, oh, that's good. Then she wasn't so disturbed. At least the Brahmins will not kill them, will not curse them. If that were to happen, she would have been extremely, very upset. And then Kasyapa said, but even better than that is that your grandson, Prahlad, will be a great devotee. So that's the beginning of the story. The next stage is that the scene switches to Vaikuntha, and the four Kumars are trying to enter Vaikuntha. The four Kumars were impersonalists, but of course they are sons of Lord Brahma, and it's explained there in some detail how Lord Brahma had preached to them to become devotees. He actually preached to them about Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, Krishna. He preached to them about all three, but the only bit they got was about Brahman. They heard about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but it just didn't really register clearly enough. So therefore, they were impersonalists. They were impersonalists, but they had heard about these things, so even though they hadn't really got it, but some interest had been stimulated. And then on top of that, Narada Muni had told them some things about Krishna. So therefore they thought that, sounds interesting. Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Sri Giri Govardhan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Yeah, let's just look into this Bhagavan person, this Krishna person. Let's just look into this. So therefore they went to Vaikuntha. They went to Vaikuntha, and by their mystical powers, they had the 8 mystical siddhis, and by becoming lighter than the lightest, they managed to travel all the way to Vaikuntha and actually enter Vaikuntha. Even though they're definitely not really devotees. They've got some interest is there. So they arrived, and in Vaikuntha there are 7 gates. The first 6 they entered quickly. In fact, they were so enthusiastic to see this Bhagavan, Krishna, Narayan person. They didn't even notice the opulences of Vaikuntha as they went through the 6 gates, the first 6. At the 7th gate, who should they meet but 2 doorkeepers, 2 guards, guarding the final gate, the actual entrance. Once you go through that gate, you're there. You are in Vaikuntha. So they were not exactly in Vaikuntha, although they were practically almost there, but not quite. So they're just carrying on the four Kumars. And interesting point, they are among the original children of Lord Brahma. They're older than Lord Shiva. They appeared before Lord Shiva and so many of the other Prajapatis. So they are senior, actually, in that sense. But they kept themselves as little boys, like 5-year-old boys, because they wanted to avoid even the possibility of what happens to boys as they start becoming men, as they start growing up physically, and then different physical and psychological changes take, particularly the attraction to the opposite sex, which they were afraid might deviate them. So they're just carrying on. Suddenly, they're stopped in quite a sort of, you could say, rude way, but it was a very strong way. They were just stopped, like in an aggressive, it was an aggressive way. That where do you little boys think you're going? And this was Jai and Vijay, the main gatekeepers of Vaikuntha. So an altercation took place. The four Kumars really became quite angry. But Jai and Vijay, they stood their ground that you cannot come in. You cannot come in. So then the four Kumars cursed them in a very general way, that you don't belong here. Look at your consciousness. Your consciousness is not a Vaikuntha consciousness. Your consciousness is material, because they were familiar with the material world and what is material consciousness. So you don't belong here. So go, get out. That was their curse. Just get out. Just go to the material world. And that was it. So at that time, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, understood what was going on, and he came to the gate there. And when he came, the four Kumars, even before they saw him, they smelt the fragrance of his lotus feet, and they smelt the fragrance of the tulsi, which was on his lotus feet. And then they saw him, and the combination of these three things, his fragrance, the fragrance of his feet, the fragrance of the tulsi, and seeing Lord Narayan, they became pure devotees on the spot. So, it's a long story, but they then, having become devotees, they became very regretful that what did we do? We became angry. So we don't deserve to be here, actually. We have offended devotees. Jai and Vijay, they felt very bad. But if you read through there, you'll see Lord Narayan, he glorifies them. Quite a number of verses. He glorifies them, he glorifies the Brahmins. And he tells them, actually, you are more worshipable than me. And you have been offended by my servants. I am responsible for my servants. So it is my offense. Their refusing to let you in is my offense. And he says that if one of my arms commits an offense against a devotee, I'm ready to, Prabhupada, the word used is lop. I'm ready to lop it off. L-O-P. Lop means, it's like when you're cutting down a tree and you just smash a branch off. That's lopping. That I'm ready to cut off one of my own arms if it offends a devotee or a Brahmin, particularly a Brahmin. And he doesn't really say a lot to Jai and Vijay except at the end of that exchange. The Lord says to the four Kumars, I accept that your curse on my servants is correct, so I will not stop it, but I have a request that you please allow them to come back soon, because they're servants of mine, they have important service to do. So the four Kumars agreed, all right. Otherwise, they were just being sent to the material world, and that was it. Just goodbye. But the Lord arranged then that they would come back shortly. And he offered either 3 births as demons or 7 as devotees. And they thought, means Jai and Vijay, we got to get back here as soon as possible. We'll take 3 births as demons. Srila Jiva Goswami discusses this in Priti Sandarbha. He says, this shows they have Salokya Mukti. They have a very deep attachment to being with the Lord, you could say, physically in his personal presence. That even they were ready to, they just wanted to get back as soon as possible, even if it meant being demons for a while. We just want to get back. Whereas other devotees who are just more absorbed in more elevated levels of devotional service, they would have chosen 7 births as devotees. It'll be wonderful. We'll just have a wonderful time and then we'll come back. And just an interesting side point is right there, Srila Jiva Goswami makes the point. He raises the question, who got the most mercy? Was it the 4 Kumars or was it Jai and Vijay? And his conclusion is Jai and Vijay got the most mercy because different reasons. One was they got chastised by the Lord. They got chastised, they got corrected for having displayed fault. Whereas the 4 Kumars, Lord Narayan sort of flattered them. I mean, if you read it, you'll see. He's just glorifying the 4 Kumars and glorifying them and glorifying. And Jiva Goswami says, it's because they were not so advanced in Krishna consciousness. He had to flatter them a bit to pacify them and get them to come back to their senses. So anyway, at that moment, right at that moment, Jai and Vijay fell down, straight out of Vaikuntha, straight down to the material world. And they were born as those 2 sons of Diti. Yes, Hiranyaksha was born first. Hiranyakashipu was born second. There was some little time in between their respective coming out of the womb. But the fact that Hiranyakashipu came out second and not first means he was the elder. He was the elder. He was conceived first, so he was situated further up in the womb. And Hiranyaksha was conceived second, so he was closer to sort of, the exit route. So he came out first, and Hiranyakashipu came out second. So anyway, it's a long story, and it could be an extremely long story. The good news is, devotees, here's some very good news. We are fasting till this evening, so you don't need to worry about breakfast. It's all right, no problem. You've heard of chanting, dancing, and feasting. That'll be there in due course. This is chanting, dancing, and fasting. And it's highly transcendentally beneficial, because we now have the opportunity to absorb ourselves more in these amazing and extremely important leelas. So then they were born. And when they were born, there were all sorts of inauspicious omens. The sky was raining blood, among a number of other extremely inauspicious things. Yes, because such things happen when demons take birth. Yes. So they were born, and Hiranyaksha came out first, and he was killed by Lord Varaha. That was, some weeks ago. We're now focusing on Hiranyakashipu. So Hiranyakashipu, when Hiranyaksha was killed by Varaha, who is Lord Vishnu, Hiranyakashipu became very angry and vowed to kill Vishnu. He vowed that to avenge my brother Hiranyaksha, I will kill this Vishnu, I will cut off his head, and I will take some of his blood, and I will offer his blood to my brother, who was very fond of sucking blood. So you get the idea, right? The type of person, the types of people we're dealing with here. So, all right, so he wanted to do that. And, like we said, it is a long story, but in order to do that, he understood Lord Vishnu is very powerful. He knew it. He was already himself very powerful, but he felt, I need to become more powerful. So he decided to take up a program of austerity. So for 100 years of the demigods, 1 year of the demigods is 360 of our years. So for 36,000 of our years, he performed extreme austerities. He stood on 1 foot with his hands upraised. No eating, no sleeping, no drinking, no nothing. He just stood there for 36,000 of our years. And the result of that was he became extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. So powerful that it's something like, if you remember some couple of, well, just recently, we were going through the story, I mean, we still are, of Dhruva Maharaj. But there's the description of the austerities of Dhruva Maharaj. And basically, particularly with him, the movements of air in the universe were stopped or interfered with very severely, because he stopped. His particular austerity was he didn't breathe. He held his breath. Hiranyakashipu, he stood there and his whole body heated up. Fire started coming out of his head. And the demigods became extremely anxious that something's going to happen. The universe is going to burn to pieces. It's just going to burn up. So what to do? They went to Lord Brahma. They complained to Lord Brahma, you have to intervene and stop this Hiranyakashipu, because he is going to devastate the universe. And they also knew, because Narada Muni had been informed by Hiranyakashipu, the demigods, when they came to Lord Brahma, they knew that Hiranyakashipu, the ultimate thing he wants to do, well, he wants to kill Vishnu, but in the course of doing that, he wants to kill you, Lord Brahma. He wants to kill you and take over as Lord Brahma. So they told Lord Brahma that this is what he wants to do. He wants to become powerful enough to kill you and take over, and then in due course he's going to kill or try to kill Lord Vishnu. So very interesting point is that Lord Brahma, even though he knew that, still he went to Hiranyakashipu and gave him benedictions, great benedictions. I think we've all heard of these benedictions. As mentioned in the Bhagavatam, these are the benedictions. So Lord Brahma came with Bhrigu Muni and various others, great sages. And Lord Brahma, by that time, Hiranyakashipu, his body had been eaten, at least the flesh on his body had been eaten by little creatures. So there was just his skeleton, which was covered by an anthill. All the ants had eaten his flesh. He was keeping his life force in his bones. So Lord Brahma came and spoke to him, and Hiranyakashipu replied that he wants some better. He glorified Lord Brahma. In fact, he addressed Lord Brahma as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Lord Brahma took his kamandalu, his little sort of water pot. I mean, it's really the same sort of thing that we distribute the water from during the arti. And he sprinkled some on Hiranyakashipu, and then Hiranyakashipu's body became whole again. And then he asked for benedictions. And a point that Prabhupada makes there is that, you know, you've heard, I'm sure, there's a saying, flattery will get you nowhere. You heard that one. It is not true. It's just a rumor. It's just propaganda. Flattery will actually get you a long way. And that's what it did for Hiranyakashipu. Even though Lord Brahma knows, he wants to become powerful so he can kill me and take over. But still, when Hiranyakashipu glorified him, that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the greatest of the great, he became influenced by that. And he was ready to give Hiranyakashipu whatever he wanted. Of course, Hiranyakashipu initially said, please make me immortal. But Lord Brahma said, I would if I could, but I can't, so I won't. I can't, because I don't even have it. I cannot give you something I don't have myself. So then Hiranyakashipu tried to be very clever. He tried to think of as many ways as possible that he could be killed, and to get a benediction that he wouldn't be killed in each way. So he says, please let me not meet death from any of the living entities created by you. Grant me that I not die within any residence or outside any residence, either inside or outside, either during the daytime or at night, or on the ground or in the sky. Grant me that my death will not be brought by any being other than those created by you, nor by any weapon, nor by any human being or animal. Grant me that I not meet death from any entity, living or non-living. He's worried about ghosts. Yeah. And probably Tikalosh, I imagine. Yeah. Grant me further that I not be killed by any demigod or demon or any great snake from the lower planets. Since no one can kill you in the battlefield, you have no competitor. Therefore grant me the benediction that I too may have no rival. Give me sole lordship over all the living entities and presiding deities, and give me all the glories obtained by that position. Furthermore, give me all the mystic powers attained by long austerities in the practice of yoga, for these cannot be lost at any time. And the Shiva Purana says that along with these different things, Hiranyakashipu asked Brahma also that I will not be killed by any dry weapon or any wet weapon, by any thunderbolt, by a mountain, by a tree, by a missile, or any form of weapon. So then, anyway, okay. Now we just sort of backtrack slightly. While he was doing his austerities for 100 years of the demigods, he took a break. He took a very short break. And he went home and he met with his wife Kayadu, and Prahlad was conceived. And then he went back and continued his austerities. Yes. So now he's still there doing his austerities. Kayadu is expecting Prahlad. Suddenly, and this is in the Bhagavatam, suddenly Lord Indra, understanding that this Hiranyakashipu is absent, he's left his home, he thought, let's go and attack his place. So he and the demigods went and attacked the place of Hiranyakashipu and just smashed everything. Killed so many of his associates. And then they found Kayadu who was pregnant with Prahlad. So Lord Indra, ever the pragmatist, you could say, said, I'll just kill her, because she's got the son of the greatest demon in her womb. So this is surely going to be another great demon. So let's just, quick solution, I'll just kill her. And he was just about to cut her head off when Narada Muni appeared. And Narada Muni, this is all described there. There's a whole chapter actually in the 7th canto. Narada Muni convinced Lord Indra that in the womb is a great devotee. In the womb of this woman is a great devotee. And the woman herself, she can't hurt you. And even if you try to kill this child, you won't be able to, because he's protected by Lord Vishnu. So just don't bother. Let him take birth, and he'll be a great devotee, and he will help you. So Indra was convinced, and Narada Muni took Kayadu to his ashram, and she gave birth to Prahlad there. And then Narada Muni was preaching every day, preaching and preaching to Kayadu. But still at this point, actually, Prahlad had not actually taken birth. He was still within the womb. I mean, he did take birth there after a while. He's still within the womb. Narada Muni is preaching to Kayadu, and Narada Muni is hearing everything. So therefore, Prahlad is hearing everything from Narada Muni. So therefore, Prahlad accepts Narada Muni as his spiritual master. So now Prahlad is great devotee. Prahlad is born. Hiranyakashipu comes back, and Kayadu goes back to him, and Prahlad goes as a family member. And then Hiranyakashipu, wow, he really got carried away. He took over essentially the whole universe, except for the planets of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu. He took over the whole universe. And Hiranyakashipu, he changed all the functionings of the universe so that there were no seasons unless he wanted a particular season. Then it would be that season. So flower-bearing plants and vegetables would produce their crops whenever he wanted. He was just running the whole universe for his sense gratification. So then Prahlad is growing up. Prahlad, of course, is a devotee, but he's keeping it all internal within himself. Then he started going to school, special school for the children of demons. And there he was taught how to cheat people, how to divide and rule, all these demoniac types of things, how to kill your enemies in different ways. And one day, Hiranyakashipu told the teachers, bring my son, I want to speak to him, see how he's doing. So Prahlad came. Hiranyakashipu said, tell me, what is the best thing you've learned? And Prahlad immediately, very enthusiastic, said, yes, best thing, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmanavedanam. These are the 9 processes of devotional service. Yeah, hearing, chanting, remembering the Lord, serving His lotus feet, worshipping Him, offering prayers to Him, befriending Him, serving Him, a second form of service, and surrendering everything. So when he said that, Hiranyakashipu was completely bewildered, just completely bewildered, that what has happened to my son? He has become a supporter of my enemy, Vishnu. So he called the teachers, Sunda and Amaka. What are you teaching this boy? And they said, no, we are not teaching these things at all. We're teaching all the good things which you told us to teach. How to cheat people and get control of people, kill people in different ways. So we don't know. So Hiranyakashipu said, I was going to kill you, but now I won't. I'll give you another chance. But what you must do, you take him back, but you must watch out for Vaishnavas in disguise. They must be sneaking in somehow, but because they're disguised, you don't recognize that they're devotees. So therefore they took Prahlad back. And what happened next? Well, devotees, tune in at 7:30 tonight to find out what happened next. The second time, Hiranyakashipu called for Prahlad, and then the confrontation between them, and then the appearance of Lord Nrsimha. Hare Krishna. Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan Ke, Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ke, Srila Prabhupada Ke. Hare Krishna.